All right, that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for hanging out. Luis and I both value our time hanging out together and, of course, hanging out with you. And we look forward to talking to you next week.
So the theme of the episode is great segues, since, as you saw, valuing your time is exactly what I wanted to talk about right now.
You're not exactly an expert at this.
No, I'm actually so good at segues that I like pointing them out. That I'm looping back to making sure that we're being very clear when we're segueing, which actually does defeat the purpose of segues.
By using up our time to point out segues.
Well, we're made of time. Actually, what I wanted to talk about was I feel like people are fairly bad at valuing their time correctly, and this is one of the ways I feel like my life has improved. And what I mean is, whatever you value your time at, it's not like I have a set number, like my time is worth, $37 an hour or whatever. It's more like people tend to value their time at zero. When they look at the equation of, time, one of the variables they put when they look at an equation of something they're going to do, one of the variables should be what your time is worth. And people, I think, way too often just set that at zero and then look at everything else. It's like, why did you spend 3 hours trying to get a refund on the $10 you spent on something that didn't work? It's like, well, because it was $10. It's like, well, 3 hours of your time is going to be worth more than $10 in the vast majority of cases.
Yeah, totally.
And people were like, well, I'm not working, so that my time isn't worth anything. It's like, no, I don't believe that is true. That not only, well, when you have people who are like, a little more freelance, you could work at any point. It's very, very clear. Like I think, poker players, I think, are very aware of this.
They are.
When you can make, $57 an hour playing poker, then wasting 2 hours doing something just feels like a net loss of, $114. But even if you don't put it quite those terms, I do think people do tend to round to zero. They just think like, well, my time is free, so what am I using? When I'm not working, I can use my time to say, like, I'm gonna spend 3 hours, walking instead of taking a cab which I've seen multiple Magic players do, because it's free. And it's like, well, your time is worth money, even if it's not something you're doing to directly earn money. And it's not even just money; it's just value of your life. I have found that my life gets better the more I pay to save time. That's just that I think has generally improved my quality of life. And it hasn't always been this case. There have definitely been plenty of times in my life where I had way more time than I had money. So the equation was very different. And there I did spend tons of time in order to save what would now seem like relatively small amounts of money. So everyone has different situations, and I'm not saying that you should do it all one way or the other, but I feel that people tend to overbalance on the side of their time being valueless, when you should value your time at whatever rate you think your time is worth. You should value it at basically all times. And that doesn't mean I think going to a movie cost me 2 hours of work. I think you go insane if you look at it that way. But it does mean that I'm not going to throw away my time on things that I don't like to do. And even if that does technically save me money or something along those lines.
It's about getting that return, right? I mean, you spend a bunch of time doing something that you don't want to do. You should ask yourself, is it worth it? Like, is what I'm getting back worth it? You shouldn't default to, well, it's just my time I'm spending, so of course it's worth it. That time is valuable. It really is. I heard somebody ask that once, I think it was on a podcast or a TV show or something, and they said, well, what's the most valuable commodity? And people are like gold and water, and, and it's like, it's time. Like, that's the thing that everybody's short on, at least from their own perspective, right? Is that we all have this, ticking clock over us, and it will expire at some point. So any of that time that you spend doing things that you don't want to do that you could otherwise afford or avoid, it's probably not the best idea.
Yeah, I just feel like people put a very clear delineation between when they work and when they don't. Because clearly, if someone is working and making $15 an hour at their job, that their time at work is worth that. But then they get off work, and then now all of a sudden their time value drops to zero. Like, why is that? That doesn't make any sense. And people just think that way. And I think that you can find decent amount of life improvement by just not looking at your time that way. Your time is worth something, and you should fight for it. You should not spend it trivially. Don't waste that money. Don't waste that just life. And again, it's not like I think of everything in terms of money. That's just a good shorthand. It's more like, would you spend 2 hours doing something unpleasant to save, $14? You probably wouldn't. Most people probably wouldn't if it's something they really didn't want to do. So why do you do that? There's plenty of people who do that who could clearly not. They wouldn't have to. They just think that their time is worth anything. So it might seem obvious, but honestly, I've seen so many people, and I used to this myself, just not value their time, in a way that's, I think, respectful to their own life, that they should really keep that in mind. On the flip side of thing, on the positive side of thing, this is a different way to use your money. I love buying people small things. I really do. It actually makes me really happy to buy my friends stuff like, a coffee or a breakfast sandwich in San Diego. Or,
wait a minute. I just realized I never paid you for the breakfast sandwich.
And that was on purpose, because
it wasn't on purpose for me. I meant to pay you for it.
No, I just figured that you accepted it as your due, but
I did not. Although I did eat it as such. It was very good.
Yes, it was quite good. But
now I feel bad.
You shouldn't, though. This is all part of my plan. This is similar to the credit card game where, I talked about how when you game and you pay for 1 out of 4 meals, it's better because you get 3 out of 4 meals for free, even though it adds up to the same amount of money. Here, let's say one day I bought, you a coffee, and I just bought you a coffee. And then, a week later you bought me a coffee. We both end up paying for 2 coffees and getting for 2 coffees. We both feel way better, though.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's
cool.
Because I'm generating value when I buy you a coffee because I like buying my friends things. And when you buy me a coffee, it feels awesome because I got a free coffee. Also, it's great that you got, 2 coffees because coffee's just fantastic. So the more the better. But I think, yes, you're going to end up sometimes in situations where you notice that, like, you buy one of your friends something, frequently and they don't return a favor. And that's fine. I don't worry about that. It doesn't bother me. I might find myself less inclined to go out of my way to do that because I do like it. I found it goes both ways. I found that it tends to balance out, every now and then you end up with like a coworker or co-host who doesn't ever buy you anything. But for the most part, the people who I tend to, without saying anything, start this trend with, I find that it's returned. And I think that is just awesome. I think it just makes everyone's life better. So it's not even a big commitment. It honestly, like, when I went to Starbucks in the morning, I bought, one of my coworkers a coffee. Didn't say anything, just, gave him the coffee because I knew what he liked. And he was like, oh, that's awesome. And just a couple weeks later, he's like, oh, no, I got it. Remember you got me the coffee the other day. So it wasn't like I made a big deal out of it or expected even to get paid back. It just happened because most people have an innate sense of fairness. And when you run into people who don't, or who don't like this, who are more comfortable making sure everyone pays for their own thing, and that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. Then you just know that's how it works with that person and you just don't worry about it. Regardless, I think you end up in a good spot. And I feel like my life has gotten way better by doing this. And I feel like it's helped people around me make them happier too. I mean, everyone likes free things. And when it all balances out, it's like everyone's just getting a ton of value. So I love value. And I found these are just good ways to generate value in your life.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny, like even at the GP that we did, right? I did bring you something, remember? And it was this stupid little cable that you can plug into your computer so you can have 2 headsets. And that's because when we did the podcast with Raptor, when he was at your house, you guys were in this horrible situation where you had to like sit in the same chair and like share one iPod headset or whatever. And I was shopping for something else for the podcast. And I thought, this is a thing that could be really useful, right? And it was like $10 or something. It didn't cost anything, but I was like, this would be awesome because you often, like, you have Paulo at your house and like this happens all the time. And I thought, well, I'll get one of these for Luis, and I got one for Ifro too, because it just is like such this thing that you just would never really come across in day-to-day life of like, oh, I need a headphone splitter in case we end up, it's just not like a thing.
Like, I'm not going to use it in day-to-day life forever, but
you will end up using it, I hope, and then it'll be good.
I probably will.
Also, how good should I feel about buying things for my friends? And to add to this story, by the way, Luis, I went out to dinner with Ben Stark and a bunch of the guys on Sunday night, and I was feeling very generous there too and bought dinner for them as well.
Well, that goes back to one of my other signups where I also think it's definitely, value added to game for dinner, but this is just a slightly different tack. I'm less likely to, I'm not going to buy one of my friends an expensive dinner just randomly all that often, though I have, every now and then.
Sure.
It's more like just I just try to think of other like small things I can do for other people because I feel like it makes me happy to make other people happy. And I again have found they tend to reciprocate kind of naturally without thinking about it much because if you think about it, it's just a good thing to do. And people, again, we both end up in a better spot.